Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Lauren of the Analyzing Horror channel. Lauren, how you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you. We have been trying to make this connection for quite a while now, and we finally were able to sit down and make this happen. I am so excited to finally do this. I love working with other content creators. It's super special to me. But before we start on why we're here, I want people to get to know you a little bit better that don't know you yet. A few years ago, she was feeling like she had no purpose really outside of basic day-to-day life, like a lot of us do once we get past those college age, the rebellious college stage, first year of college, and we hit those rocks. And she was craving something with that meaning, and she always wanted to be a writer. It's something that you knew you wanted to be, and you knew that you loved horror. So if you know that you want to be a writer, you know that you loved horror, why not put those two things together? And the obvious first step to that is to start writing Letterboxd reviews. And it's so amazing because a lot of us go to Letterboxd to get our reviews and determine what we want to watch that night. You couple that with a horror Twitter account. What really gave you the push to be like, you know what, I'm going to start reviewing these movies and just see where that goes?
Well, it's kind of like what you said, where there was just a point in my life where I just felt like I was in a rut, where I was just, I had a lot of hobbies, right? But there was nothing that was like driving me day to day. I filled my days, but there was nothing like propelling me to the next day. And it just felt just at a standstill. And there was just one day where actually it was when Last of Us Part 2 came out back in 2020. I'm a big Last of Us fan. So that release was a big thing. And from there was a divide in the community. And I just was really exhausted, like with 2020, obviously being very divisive and lots of stuff going on. And then within a little fandom community, there was division. I was just exhausted by it all. And so like you said, like there's always been a love for writing. And then it kind of dawned on me, like I always loved horror. But it just kind of like smacked me in the head one day where it's just like, oh my God, I love horror like a lot. And so I discovered Letterboxd, and I've always wanted to like connect my writing with something that I really love, and then finding horror as but like discovering that I loved horror as much as I did. And then in addition, kind of like what I said, where everything like was very divisive at the time, I really wanted to create like a little pocket of the internet that was positive. Like even if I don't like a movie, I'll always try to find something that I like about it. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with not liking something, but people still put effort into it. And yeah, so
something I've said even on this podcast numerous times, and repeat viewers can attest that I'm not just kissing your butt right now. This is me being genuine and me being who I am. Even if I don't like something, if you're out there and you're creating art, good for you. I hope that there's a base for it. Even if that base is not me, I hope that there's someone out there that's enjoying the art that you're creating. I would never wish for an artist to fail. So I love what you just said. Even if I don't like it, I'll try to find some positives in it. So maybe somebody that reads my review can go and find those positives for themselves, and they can love the art that someone else created.
Right. And I would never want to offend someone that maybe I don't like the movie, but they do. And I would never want to be like, well, this movie is terrible. So I feel like I come across a lot of those people on Twitter where it's like, this movie's garbage. It's like, you didn't finish your sentence to you. Like, it's bad to you. And that's cool. But when you start stating opinions like they're facts, you got a problem. But yeah, so it's just, that was one of my biggest drivers, even before I wanted to do YouTube, was I just wanted to be a positive, like little beam of sunshine amongst all of the negativity. And I just feel like the world really needs that. And not especially, but like in horror, like it's a nice little avenue of getting to talk about like blood and guts and killing and all the crazy stuff, but it's like we're positive. So yeah.
And one thing that I love is horror has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to social issues, when it comes to women being in the forefront of horror. I just had this conversation the other day with a female friend of mine, and I love the fact that there are people that still look at horror and see women as the final girl or the bimbo or the boobies in the 80s movie. But now we're really getting a lot of women that are directing, that are writing, that are doing behind the scenes work. And horror, with the inclusion that it has, we're getting to, I mean, obviously you still have your dumbass gatekeepers that when you're like, I'm a woman that loves horror, they're like, well, which Friday the 13th have the sleeping bag kid? Like, dude, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Women can love horror just as much as men. Like, that's the only thing
Mhm.
that really bothers me. But the way that
Mhm.
women have come, like, look at Nia DaCosta and what she's done, you know, with Candyman. That was
Mhm.
amazing. The
Yeah.
direction of that movie. And a lot
Mhm.
of these female writers that are just absolutely destroying it right now, and female directors
Right.
that are just blowing the doors down in horror right now. And
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, would you ever consider writing a full-length feature script or maybe like a short film? Is that something you've ever, you know, maybe decided to go into?
Yeah, I mean, recently, definitely, especially because of all the movies that I've been consuming as of late. When I was younger, I've been fascinated with novels. Like, I just remember the first time reading like a chapter book and just being like, oh my God, like someone created this story, they put it down on paper, and now it's in front of me. Like, how does this work? So I've just been fascinated with novels. And also, when I was younger, I was a big fantasy person. Like, I adore Harry Potter. So, in a lot of ways, I would always love to do like a horror fantasy kind of compilation, whether that be a novel or maybe like a screenplay or something like that. That would be kind of cool. But I feel like there isn't enough like fantasy horror out there, and so that would be really cool to kind of create. So yeah, in a way, I haven't actually put pen to paper on that yet, but it's definitely something that I've been mulling over.
If you ever do, let me know. I would love to check that out.
We'll do, yeah, like Dark Fae or
I
something
do want
like
to
that.
talk about like I do want to talk about how you you know, not only are you a writer and you know obviously doing the horror YouTube or Twitter channel, which is super straight. I love Twitter. Twitter's like my favorite app. Like I'm always on there, you know,
Mhm.
talking shit to everybody. But you also do analyzing horror, your YouTube channel. What can you tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about analyzing horror that people may not know about yet?
Well, yeah, just I guess reiterating what I said earlier about just trying to create like a little pocket of the internet that's positive. And I've just once discovering how much I love horror, it's just really funny. I don't know if you could relate, but there's just like there's something that's in your life that you love, and it's just like, yeah, I love this, and then one day it just kind of like smacks you over the head. It's like, oh my God, like I'm just like I know so much about horror. I've seen so many horror movies. Like whenever I meet someone that's also a big horror fan, like you can't shut me up. So like I just ended up realizing like, oh my God, like I love this so much. I could talk forever about certain movies. And then also starting Letterboxd, that was really fantastic. And I got to like really gush over like how much I loved horror movies. And I also had people on Twitter just be like, I read your Letterboxd reviews, like you seem really passionate, like you could like kind of kill it on YouTube. Just like, I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So just the passion and the fact that I could talk about a lot of movies forever really ended up making me choose to do it. um, I don't know. It's also really cool because in a lot of ways, in addition to that rut, I wasn't the type of person where, oh, like this sounds like a cool idea, and then I actually don't go through with it. So this was something that like I actually went through, and I'm committed to it. And I tell myself every Friday a video is coming out, and by God, every Friday it's coming out. And I'm just, in addition to being positive and wanting to share my passion, like I'm um, keeping a promise to myself, and I feel like that's really important and special. And I don't know, it feels like a life change in a lot of ways.
I'm proud of you, man. Like that's really, really cool because not only are you doing something with a passion that you love, but you're creating those goals and setting those, you know, those benchmarks for yourself. Like this is going to
Hmm.
happen here. I'm going to do this. And that keeps you productive and it keeps you on your toes. And
Yeah.
a lot of people falter because they look at it as, oh, you make YouTube videos. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's
No.
very hard. You have a lot of script writing, you have a lot of editing, you have, you know, there's so much that goes into this. And
Absolutely.
you do like it always seems like you have that episode that you do and you're so proud of it, and then you get 10 views the first day and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I have to do to get this pumping? So one good thing is you guys don't have to go far to look for her Letterboxd, her Twitter, her YouTube, because all those links are down here in the description. So make sure that you're following these, make sure you're subscribing to these so you can stay up to date with Lauren and analyzing horror and everything that she's doing over there. But in order to analyze horror, Lauren, horror has to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about how horror started for you. We may need a bigger episode, but your first horror movie was
Jaws.
and you know what? I had to rock it. You know,
Yeah,
I
you
just
sure did.
it's a movie that I think has stood the test of time. It's one of the only
Yeah.
movies I've ever said does not 100% does not need to be remade ever for
Please
any
don't.
reason under any circumstance.
Yes.
It's just one of those movies that is absolutely perfect. And
Yeah.
the only bad thing about this is the fact they tried to turn it into a franchise.
Yeah.
This would have been the perfect standalone film.
Yeah.
Do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
I think I was about 6 years old. My parents are divorced, so at the time I was living with my mom, and she's not a big horror fan. She never supported my interest in horror, but she did introduce me and my little sister to Jaws, and I'll never forget being so terrified. And we would go to like the neighborhood swimming pool during the summer, and I refused to swim in the deep end because I was convinced he was just sitting there waiting for me. And it was so interesting because I was terrified. It's like, I need to watch this again. Like, I need to know like,
Right.
the weird adrenaline that you get from horror and just like being terrified. Like, I just was addicted immediately.
It's like doing drugs. Now, again, everybody knows I don't condone drug use. It's not, if you can be responsible with whatever you do, that's you. But watching horror, to me, you know, you watch that first horror movie and then you're constantly chasing that dragon. You're constantly trying to get that high again. And so if you're going to do drugs, make it horror movies.
Yeah.
But I completely understand where you're coming from. Now, we know that you watched it with your mom for the first time. Now, Mama Lauren, I'm not happy that you don't support the horror life, but I'm extremely happy that you got it started. So
Yeah.
what scene would you say, Lauren, affected you the most from Jaws?
Oh man, a lot. I think one of the first ones that comes to mind is that zoom in shot at the beach. I just feel like that's so incredibly impactful because, like I said, like there's no like blood, there's nothing like actually scary happening. It's just all facial expression acting, and again, like the zoom in shot, and just man, like you feel the emotions with that character, and the fear is so palpable. And yeah, just like he's freaking out, and I don't know, it like that is a scene that I'll just like never get out of my head. Obviously the other one is Quint whenever he is being chewed in half. That's very effective as well.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the Quint scene, like that's dark, you know, because you're rooting for this guy so hard.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, this is the first time you really see the shark do its business. I mean, like you said earlier with Alex Kidner, you get like him splashing in the water, and the most iconic shot of the movie, you know, like you said, that zoom in of Brody, or at the very beginning, you get the girl that's getting dragged, you know, around the water. But
that opening scene.
You see what's happening with the shark. And I mean, let's talk for a second. We could talk about how iconic this movie is. People that have never seen Jaws know the theme song.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you go swimming, there's always that one person that's going da dun, you know, and and even people that have never seen it know what they're talking about. And then you got some of the best lines in cinema history, whether it's
"You're gonna need a bigger boat,"
or my personal favorite at the very end of the movie,
"Smile, you son of a..."
That's something I said so many times as a kid. So the movie's shots are not only iconic, the score is iconic, some of the one-liners are iconic. I mean, they're still putting that shit on shirts, you know, you're gonna need a bigger boat. So
there's also comedic lines too. Sorry.
Yes. No, go ahead.
Well, like that's some bad hat, Harry. Like, I think that is so funny. He deeply offends Harry. I love that. Or the classic one where Hooper is correcting the group where it's like, oh, it's like this type of shark. And then one guy goes, what? Cracks me up every time. I love it.
It's just the way he said what? It's so great.
So sincere. He's just like, I don't know what you're saying, dude. Like,
Right.
oh my
So
God.
we know which scene affected you the most, and obviously there's a lot of effective scenes throughout
Mhm.
Jaws, but what would you say your favorite scene from Jaws is?
Oh man. So many. I could literally list basically the entire movie, but I think I could say my favorite is the scene with Hooper in the underwater shark cage. Getting to see not only like the mechanical shark, but also real footage of an actual great white. That's another thing that I love about Jaws is that it sparked my deep love for sharks in general. Like I know way too much. I watched too many documentaries about sharks. I love them so much. So getting to see not only like the mechanical shark and how that kind of worked underwater, but also getting to see actual footage of a shark is one of my favorites. And then also getting to see the shark thrash on top of the cage. That was really cool.
Right. No, you gotta love it. And like you said, this movie was all around a happy accident. Like a lot of the times they wanted more Bruce, the shark, and the mechanical shark was just not cooperating. And I think that worked out in favor actually, because it makes it so much scarier when you do see him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the second kill, you get to see him underwater, like approaching, but the actual kill doesn't really get seen. Yeah, I think they make just the shark fin or just getting to see a little bit of him is almost more terrifying than getting to see like the actual bite on. So
I 100% agree with you. The scariest thing to me are the things that I come up with in my imagination. So
yeah,
let me think what I'm doing here, like.
yeah,
So,
like
a question that I have to ask you just because it is in my script and I hate asking it, especially with this one because I know what the answer is. But since this is part of a franchise, we do have Jaws, Jaws 2, Jaws 3D, and Jaws the Revenge. Which of these movies was your favorite?
I'll be honest, I haven't seen the sequels. So obviously I have to say that the original is my favorite. I've avoided the sequels because I've heard that they aren't too great. And I love the original so much that I didn't want to tarnish it. I have recently been told that at least Jaws 2 is worth my time. So I need to check that out. But I've actually never seen the sequels.
Jaws 2 is decent enough. But if it makes you feel any better, if you did watch all the sequels, the first one would probably still be your favorite. I mean, if that makes you feel any better, that's probably where we're going to go back to. And
yeah,
another question that we obviously talked. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's actually kind of something funny because I think Jaws in a lot of ways sparked this not distaste, that's the wrong word, but I've just had an aversion for sequels because I was told, oh, the Jaws sequels are terrible, don't watch it. And I feel like in a lot of ways, I've just like not watched sequels because of that. And I've recently been revisiting like sequels like a Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. I haven't seen all of the Halloween movies either. So it's like I'm working on it. But that's just one of those things where it's like the original is the best. Like I don't need to watch the sequels because the original is perfection. But yeah, I've just actually been like starting to revisit a lot of sequels, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, you've never seen this?" I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, but it's better late than never, right?"
No, and it's funny because Jaws, the original, is the best. Nightmare on Elm Street, I think the original is the best. Friday the 13th, not even close. I think there's 3 or 4 sequels that are better than the original. Same with Halloween, blasphemous, I know. Child's Play, I think 1 is amazing, but I think 3 is the best. So I mean, I think that just comes down to taste in that area. So again, another question I have to ask because we don't always talk about Jaws. Sometimes we talk about other movies, but remakes, requels, prequels, sequels, all the rage in Hollywood. Would you like to see Jaws remade today?
No, no. It's so perfect. And again, like you mentioned that the mechanical shark had its imperfections where it like shut down and stuff, but it's just beautiful to me. Like there's no way to remake that, especially in today's. Like they probably would end up doing CGI, and that would just break my heart because
Right.
I just love the physicality of it. So like getting it's like they would try to do it like 47 meters under whatever that movie is, where it's just like all like CGI sharks, and I couldn't stand it. So
Yeah,
just
you'd hear
leave it
me
alone.
crying in the back of the cinema.
Yeah.
So we know about Jaws being your first horror movie, and that's what got you started in the horror genre. But now I want to throw you a little bit of a curveball here for a second, Lauren.
Okay.
My buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Lauren? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Of all time, I have to say The Thing. The Thing is my favorite of all time.
Are we talking about the John Carpenter's The Thing,
John
the remake?
Carpenter. Mm-hmm.
I've always said I have 3 movies that are perfect when it comes to practical effects.
Yes.
And those 3 movies are A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, An
Mhm.
American Werewolf in London, and The
Yes.
Thing.
Perfect.
Those 3 movies when it comes to practical effects. And then you got other ones that are completely amazing. We talked about The Fly earlier. I think that The Fly is, hands down, Jaws, another one that's great with practical effects. Like the scene in Jaws that people don't talk about when he pulls the dock off, and that's real. That's all real. They
Yes.
built that set for them to tear it apart. Like you don't see that today. And that
Yes.
scene lasts for 10 seconds, but it left
they
that
don't.
much of an impact in my life seeing the shark pull that dock off.
Yes.
So, for you to say The Thing to me, when you talk about it in the horror community, it's widely loved, it's
Mhm.
cherished,
Mhm.
but I will still go out on a limb and say it's the most underrated film of all time when it comes to in the grand scheme of film. The
Mhm.
practical effects are great, the acting is great. I personally think it's the most underrated score in all of horror.
Yes.
The suspense is perfect. The ending
Mhm.
is wonderful. The Thing, when it comes to being an amazing film, not a horror film, an amazing film, it does not get the credit that it deserves for being the
Mhm.
film that it is. And I will go to bat for that film for you for the rest of my life, Lauren, because that film is so good. I'm so glad that you said that, because that movie's it's just so damn good.
Yeah, it's perfect. I am a huge like 80s fan, and a lot of the reason is because of the practical effects that are used during that era, and that movie is obviously no exception. Like all of the different like mutations that the Thing turns into, like obviously it breaks my heart with the husky scene, but like that weird mutation that comes out of it, and then obviously like the clear, and then the hands getting chopped off scene, like that one was really great. Yeah, it's just perfect, not only just with the practical effects, because it is absolutely perfect in just that area, but the performances, like all of the characters are very interesting, even like ones that don't have like a lot of time on screen.
Wilford Brimley.
Yeah. I mean, in addition, like also the aspect of not trusting, like you're already isolated, and then you're not trusting the people that you're bumping elbows to, and just like that. I can't imagine how scary that must be. And that blood test scene, I think, is one of my favorite scenes. Like the blood jumps out, and then he starts like mutating, like while he's like tied up to the chair. Like, oh my God, it's such a great scene.
Well,
yeah,
and it's funny because we just talked about my 3 favorite practical effects films.
Mhm.
And when people ask me what worries me about a prequel, a sequel, or a remake, those are
Mhm.
the 3 things I list. I say, well, you know what? Nightmare on Elm Street had a remake, and
Yeah.
the CGI in it was dog shit compared to the original.
Yeah.
The Thing had a prequel, and
Yeah.
the CGI in it was dog shit compared to the original. So we got the remake, we got the prequel. Oh, that's right. American Werewolf in London had a sequel, American Werewolf in Paris, and guess what? The CGI looked like shit compared to the original. So if you were going to make a prequel, a remake, or a sequel of one of these movies, in my opinion, go the route of Evil Dead 2013 or Child's Play 2019. Take the original idea and completely morph it and make it your own. Don't redo the scenes that have already been
Yeah.
done perfectly with practical effects and try to CGI them up for a newer audience. It doesn't work. It does
It
not
doesn't.
work at all.
No. And in a lot of ways, like you're trying to cater to this fan base that loves the original movie, and then you're going to try to like modernize it. Like that's not what people love about it. Yeah, and I don't know. Like I feel like creating like your own version, kind of like what you said. But it's like in the same universe, but it's not like scene for scene trying to copy and paste. Because I think that's something that I can't stand about like prequels, remakes, that kind of thing that you mentioned, where it's just like, oh, we're just gonna like do the exact same thing, except we're gonna like modernize it and do CGI. It's like, no, like leave it alone if you're gonna do that. Like that's just a waste of money. Create something original if you're gonna do that. But yeah, if it's like in the universe, kind of like you said, with the Evil Dead like remake, kind of not remake, that was really cool. Where it's kind of in the universe, kind of not its own story, but kind of not. Like that's perfect.
I thought that movie was brilliant. Like
I loved it.
I love the fact that like they're taking her out to this cabin to get her to kick her dope habit. Like it wasn't like, hey, let's go party in the woods and oh no, monsters. Like they have a reason they're there. They have a reason they cannot leave. Brilliant. Fede Alvarez, Sam Raimi, brilliant job on your recreation of that classic film. And you couldn't redo Ash Williams. They knew that. Bruce Campbell is Ash Williams. You can't redo that. Child's Play 2019, they knew you can't redo Charles Lee Ray. He's already been done. He's already been done perfectly. Don't redo him. Make this your own. Good on you.
Yeah.
Now, Lauren, I have had such an amazing time getting to know you, and you guys can have an even better time getting to know her better by clicking these links down here in the description. But before we go, I always ask one last question. And what we're going to do now, Lauren, is we are going to bounce back to Jaws. And what we're going to do is we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking this movie on acting, production, score, direction, because it would get 5 no matter what. But what we're going to do here is rank this movie strictly on how much it affected you on first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but my script says I have to ask you, what would your ranking of Jaws be?
I mean, I know this is probably cliche and you've already guessed it, but I would say 5, just because in a lot of ways it introduced me to horror. And I know I've had debates of like whether or not like a creature feature Jaws is horror, but I mean, I think that it terrified me, so that works as horror for me. And it just was an absolute gateway into all kinds of amazing movies, and it just like branched me off into getting to experience so many different types of subgenres of horror. And it holds a very special place in my heart for exactly that. So
I don't understand how anybody could make the argument that it's not a horror movie. Like I've had people tell me that Alien isn't a horror movie, and I'm like, are you serious right now? Like what about that movie in Jaws? But see, there's other movies that like people consider borderline or not horror movies that I will fight to the death are horror movies. I think that Jurassic Park, 100% a horror movie. 100%
thank you.
Horror movie.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah. The first Ghostbusters, horror movie. It's a horror comedy, but it's a horror movie. 100%. And one that I'm willing to fight to the death. I mean, I will fight tooth and nail for this. The Terminator is a slasher film. Through and through. He wears a mask to cover his identity. He goes through the phone book, literally killing every Sarah Connor. He will not stop until he kills her. Like it's a slat. Look, it gets more sci-fi fantasy as the franchise goes. But to me, that first Terminator movie is it's such a sci-fi slasher film. And oh my gosh, the T-800 is one of my favorite slashers of all time. You know, like he's a slasher, and he's like, I'll be back. Like the biggest slasher line ever, man. So Lauren, I do want to say thank you so much for coming on here and hanging out with me. It's always an honor to get to know other content creators and be able to share their content. And I'm sharing that content. And you can do that by clicking these links down here in the description. So like I said, make sure you're following her on social media on Letterboxd. I don't know what the hell Letterboxd is, but now I'm curious. on Letterboxd, as well as subscribing to the YouTube channel so you can support her and all her endeavors here in the future. So, Lauren, please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.